Hi, my name is Leslie Ring from Old Belvedere, and you're watching the Her Sport Energia AIL show sponsored by Energia. Think of the possibilities.
Hello and welcome back to the Her Sport Energia AIL rugby show brought to you by Energia. I'm Lauren and I'm joined by my co-host Hannah Tyrrell, and we're going to catch up on all of the Energia AIL rugby action that's been happening over the past couple of weeks. But before we get into that, there's been some updates on the Ireland squad. So Eimear has hung up her boots. So Hannah, what was it like playing with Eimear, and what can you say about her as a player, and especially that amazing season that she's finished up with?
Emer actually started playing rugby kind of similarly enough to the time that I did. So we would have played first as seven teammates together on the World Series, and then obviously both of us would have played on the 15 side as well. And Emer is probably a late comer to rugby, just like me. Her background obviously is in Gaelic football, and for her particularly camogie. But she had a lot of transferable skills that came across, and I think one thing for me that really stood out about Eimear is kind of her work ethic and her dedication, because when she first came into sevens, she was actually trying to train with us full time and still hold down a full time teaching job here in Dublin as well. And I remember it just being a really stressful period for her, and kind of she really cared about her kids and school and didn't want to just leave that job behind, but also wanted to give this new venture an opportunity to go. And I'll never forget, her first tournament was a friendly one in San Diego back in, I think it was early 2015, January 2015. And she'll tell you herself, she barely knew the rules of the game. And I think she first played as a scrum half in that first couple of games. But look, we all know her as kind of a winger slash fullback. And she's represented Ireland over numerous years. And I think for her resilience, she's had a very long career, very durable career. She's been solid for Ireland in that back three under the high ball. But particularly the last couple of years, she obviously took time out to have a baby boy, Kaelin, and then she unfortunately did her ACL as well. And I probably think for her, from when she started rugby in the sevens programme and to where rugby is now being centralised and contracted and stuff, I often wondered, did she maybe think that kind of part of it had passed her by, and that her rugby career as an international had maybe ended? But she got I hope she would agree the same, a bit of a surprise recall, I suppose, to the Irish squad for the WXV1 campaign this year, drafted in, I think, as injury cover. And in fairness to her, like, she obviously trained really well and kind of showed her experience, which is what this young team has probably been lacking a little bit, particularly in the back line. And slotted in and started in those games and scored a couple of really nice tries as well. And probably a really fitting end for her that she was able to go out on her terms, particularly after her injury. And to do what she's done after giving birth and the changes that your body goes through is phenomenal. And while it was probably very emotional for her to say goodbye, particularly at a time where women's rugby has picked back up again after the tough few years it's had, and with the World Cup around the corner that Ireland have qualified, I'm sure it was a very, very difficult decision for her. But she's had a wonderful career, about 7s and 15s, played in World Cups, and played a huge role in leading this team to where it is, and to have gone through the highs and lows. To be able to go out on your terms, I think, is something very special and important, and not everybody gets to do it. So she probably feels it's the right time. She's got that nice kind of fairy tale ending to an extent, and can now, go back to doing what she loves in her own spare time, and maybe go to the World Cup as a supporter, knowing that she helped them get there.
Exactly, yeah, you do hear that a lot with rugby players being, happy that they can decide when they leave the game, of course. And like you said, a 10-year career there, 30 caps for Ireland, like, it's super impressive. But then looking ahead to the World Cup, how do you think the team feel, or what kind of a loss will it be for them?
Yeah, well, look, I think one thing about Emer is that she's a really, really great personality, and always managed to obviously make some great relationships within the team. And yeah, she'll definitely be missed. Like, not only obviously on the pitch, off the pitch, her leadership, her experience, they're invaluable. But the girls obviously know her own situation and her home life and her family, and what comes first for her. And Emer obviously had other plans, and the girls will respect that. And what it does is it opens up an opportunity for somebody else to come in and say, well, look, there's a spot there on the wing, or maybe a fullback, and I have a couple of months to try and hold down a jersey for myself and make that playing for the World Cup.
Exactly, absolutely. And another former player, Sene, is after getting a amazing position as CEO. She's the first Pacifica female in this role. So yeah, what can you say about that?
Yeah, look, Sene, another one who I spent most of my career playing with and training alongside. So myself and Sene actually made our 15th debut together against Italy back in 2015, the year we won the Six Nations. So it was really, really nice and special. She was playing in the centre and I was playing on the wing. But Sene is probably the hardest, most driven and dedicated person I've ever met. She is the busiest woman I've ever met, and she has her hand in so many different national and sporting bodies, healthcare projects, and this is all while she was playing rugby as well. Now she's obviously retired in the last couple of years, but she has a network of people that are both friends and obviously commercial and business partners and everything else, but she's done so much for the women's game on and off the pitch. And it's fantastic to see these appointments and see more women get into these leadership roles. And for her, it's a special appointment because she's now CEO of North Otago, which is her actual hometown home club. So for her, it feels like she's kind of come full circle in her rugby journey, and she started off there and now gets to kind of give back and also kind of, I suppose, move up the ladder in her own career. She's worked a little bit with World Rugby, and a lot of these other projects. She's worked with Bodywise. I did a little bit of work with her there. Trying to promote awareness and get more details out to coaches around helping young people with eating disorders. And she just wants the game to get so much better, and she, not just for men, for women too, but obviously there's a special interest there in growing the game for women, and she's been a fantastic appointment there. And I've no doubt she'll continue to rise and do really, really well. But it's a pity obviously that it's in New Zealand and it's not here in Ireland, which is made her home. But I wish her well. I hope it goes really well for her, and we might see her back in Ireland helping out a team or maybe even the RFU here at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so inspirational for players now to see, post-career you can go into a different career, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Open up pathways everywhere.
Exactly. But moving over to the AIL games, there was plenty of action over there, starting with Blackrock against Cooke. The scoreline there was disappointing for Cooke.
Yeah, look, I suppose it's been a couple of weeks of action there for Blackrock. I suppose that was their first home win of the season, fairly emphatic defeat of Cooke, but it's back-to-back wins for Blackrock, and for them it's about getting a little bit of consistency, getting a couple of wins on the bounce, gaining their confidence, getting their players going. I've been really impressed by Orla Wafer, Aoife Wafer's younger sister, who probably has a lot of pressure on her shoulders to perform in the wake of her sister's exploits on the international stage. But yeah, for Cooke, look, a really tough loss, obviously. As I said, every year they're really struggling. They're trying their best to do brilliant work in the background, but they just can't manage to get some results going and get any sort of consistency. And when you're coming up against teams and you're getting 50 plus points put on you, it can be quite difficult to get out of that and keep going. But they're resilient. They keep coming back, giving 100%. Their players keep working at training and they are improving. But unfortunately, when the results don't go your way like that, it can be hard to keep the morale up and keep going. But fair play to them. They just get up, they aim for the next one, and they just keep trucking on, which it's no mean feat. It's not easy to do. So fair play to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course they have Ireland prop Ilse van Staden on their team. I'm sure that's given them a good bit of a boost as well.
Yeah, and I saw on their social media as well. Like Ilse, I would have played with Ilse at the 2017 World Cup. She came in as an injury replacement. Lovely woman. There's a beautiful family. I actually saw on their Facebook post or an Instagram post recently, they were really celebrating. They have a couple of mothers on their team and that they've kind of welcomed back in and stuff. And I think they just have a really nice inclusive club there that is welcoming of all ages and abilities and levels. And it's really, really nice to see. And Ilse, obviously being a mother herself, her wife plays in the team as well. I think it's a really nice family oriented way of doing it, and it's probably why people keep coming back regardless of the results, because of the social side of it and the friendships that they make. And eventually that will, all that hard work they're putting in will hopefully turn into some results for them and they can start to see some positives.
Exactly. No, at the end of the day, sometimes it is just about getting out and being able to play. Moving on to the next one, Old Belvo, you'll be glad to see a win for them against Wicklow.
Yeah, look, coming into that game, Belvo were 8th in the table, not where they wanted to be at all. Used to over the last couple of years fighting for top 4, even top 2, and they wouldn't have been happy with their start to season. Tanya Rosser, obviously, she knew that herself, missing a lot of players, but at the weekend they were able to welcome back Derv Nicovard, which was absolutely brilliant after her ACL injury. And Wicklow had been high flyers. They were third in the table at one point. Actually, over the last couple of weeks, they topped the table, and they've been doing really well, really good defensive record, and this was a very emphatic win for Old Belvedere. Megan Edwards has been super for them over the last while. She got a hat-trick at the weekend, and I think she's 5 tries now in 3 games. So for Old Belvedere, it's about just picking up wins. That's 2 in a row now. They'll move on to the next game and hope that they can kind of keep that morale boost and that confidence going. But after a shaky start to the season, it looks like, Belv have kind of got back into it. Wicklow, it's a big dent for them, considering they'd gone so well. I did predict at the start of the year they might be trying to break in that top 4, and they're definitely showing me that, but they would have targeted that Belleville game as to show we have arrived, we want to break this top 4, and they just didn't have it on the day, just didn't really show up there. Caoimhin Malloy was brilliant for them. Jason Morton's done really well with them in their defence, but they were just breached one too many times, and they'd be really, really licking their wounds a little bit. That was their opportunity to show people they're really capable of breaking that top 4.
Yeah, exactly, because they are on the table. They're doing a lot better than last season, so hopefully now they'll bounce back this weekend. We still do have another few matches to take a look at, but we actually got to get the opinion of the AIL rugby players on their toughest position to play in rugby, so let's take a look.
I'm going to get stick for this.
I think the backs just have it way too easy.
I want to say hooker, because that's probably the hardest position I've played, because you have so much pressure in the line out and in the scrum. But I don't know, second row doesn't look like a party either.
Probably a back row, because you have to kind of play a bit like a back and a forward.
Are you a back row?
Yeah.
Definitely second row, because you have to learn all the line outs and all the scrums and know the moves off the scrums.
I would argue 13 as a 13. Defensively, 13 is quite difficult. Obviously you have to mark the open space but also get your man, but I'm sure that is open to dispute.
I'd say maybe 13. You can get left out in the cold, if you have no inside defence and if your winger's not helping you.
Definitely flanker. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a flanker. I think you have to do a bit of everything. You have to have an engine, good over the ball, but then also have a good passing ability as well. So you kind of have to be able to do it all, except maybe scrums.
You're very welcome back to the Her Sport Energia AIL rugby show, brought to you by Energia. I'm Lauren, joined by my co-host Hannah. So we just heard from the AIL rugby players about their toughest positions in their opinion. What about you? What do you believe is the toughest rugby position?
It's a really tricky one to look at, I suppose. It depends on what you mean by hardest, i.e. the most physically demanding or attritional. Probably second row, back row, but then if you look at it from a technique perspective, prop is up there as something not everyone can do, the technique in the scrum. But I suppose, and maybe I'm slightly biased in this, when you're looking at how to play the game and how adaptable you can be and being able to read defences and everything else, out half is probably one of the trickiest positions, not from a physical side of things, but being able to run the game, manage your forwards, try see a couple of phases in advance. From that side of things, I think out half or 10 is probably the most difficult position to play, purely because when your team is doing well, it's because you're doing well and you're doing all the right decisions and getting good forward ball and managing your forwards, and all the pressure is on you to do well. If a 10 is doing well, your team is doing well, kind of thing. And not everybody has those attributes to be able to see a couple of phases in behind. You need to be able to kick, pass, run, communicate, delegate, and you need to be able to work with the ref a little bit as well and keep them on your side. So from a non-physical point of view, definitely 10. From a physical point of view, to be honest, anywhere in the forwards, they put their body on the line to allow the backs to look pretty good. So I don't know if I could, maybe second row or prop, I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to decide. They all have their challenges.
Everyone's brilliant.
Exactly.
Keep everyone on my side.
Everyone's a hard worker. But moving back to the matches, Suttonians and Galwegians, that was a tight game, but Suttonians took it just there. I noticed that Suttonians were missing Katie Grant-Duggan, who's just gone to New Zealand there. She signed off with them.
Yeah, look, Suttonians Galwegians probably for the last couple of seasons have been tit for tat and really close for each other and very much competing for that kind of 4th, 5th, 6th spot on the table. And always come across as really, really tight games. And look, this was no different. 4 points in it. You know, game could have gone either way in the end of it, but Suttonians managed to squeeze it through. And for them, you know, their head coach Colin Keogh would have been absolutely delighted with that home game. Galwegians going back all the way on that bus. I'm sure it was a very long journey for them, but they've historically been really tight games. And you know, for me, I just think that like Lauren Fallon McCabe has come back from travelling this season, and she's just been brilliant for them. And I feel like I talk about her every time Suttonians play, but she is just the spark that gets this team going. She can play multiple positions. She's jinky, you know, in her attack. She just makes things happen for Suttonians. And Galwegians would be just so disappointed with that. You know, as I said, a lot of teams will have target games throughout the year where they know they can win or that could make a huge difference. And for Galwegians, while this was an away game, this was definitely one they felt probably that they had the beating of. But you look, I love games like that, particularly when I'm a neutral, where, you know, they are really, really tight and it's on a knife edge, because that's what draws people to the game and to watch it, because there's that tension, there's that drama. And I hope that there's more games like this that can showcase the skills of players that are on show in the AIL, and hopefully more games like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw Aoife Wafer saying recently that Lauren Farrell McCabe actually came up through the grassroots like she did, you know, playing on the boys' teams. So it's just interesting to see the players now, how they started out.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and like for a lot of these girls now, and hopefully obviously that's changing, there are youth teams now that they're all coming through that are primarily and dominantly girls teams. But for a lot of people who've been a little bit more experienced, shall I say, there were no underage or youth teams, and there's some brilliant work being done. I know all Belvedere have some brilliant youth coaches that are working with girls there, but like there were no youth teams for them, so they had to play with the boys. Eve Higgins is the biggest one of that. She came through Barnhall, I think it was, and she played in a boys team, and it honed her skills. It made her tough, you know, and she was from what I've heard, is one of the best players on that team, you know, regardless of her gender, and it's brilliant. But no, it is great to see there has been developments now, and there's grassroots and there's underage Ireland internationals, and it's brilliant to see.
No, of course, absolutely. And moving over to Tullow and Railway Union, now that was it's a tough one for Tullow to take, of course.
Yeah, but like we spoke about this before, this is Tullow's first year up in the Women's Energia AIL, and they knew it was going to be a tough task. They have a really, really young side, and you know, they know that every other team they're playing against has a couple of years of experience in this league and understands, you know, the level that it's at and what's to be expected. And you know, overnight things weren't going to change massively for Tullow, and they knew that it was going to be a tough season, and they just wanted to kind of show glimpses of what they can do, and I think they have done that. Look, coming up against Railway, who show no mercy, you know, for them, Railway just got to go out and play rugby and do that. And I think while they've racked up a lot of points there, I think it's the right thing from Railway's perspective, because you want to show respect by showing how good you can be and getting to the level that they're at. And for Tullow, they're putting in some good performances. They've some really, really good underage players who are coming through the international pathways that we just spoke about, and players who played under 18 last year, and like they will all take time to develop, get used to the standard of this league. When they go back into their Ireland setups, they'll get really good coaching, which will come back and help them, and over time they will get an understanding of what level they need to be at, and these players will grow and develop. They have a couple of experienced players, Joanna Mahon, who previously I think played with Blackrock, I think it was, actually maybe Railway, so apologies, I can't remember, but like she's playing on that team now, really, really experienced, so she's kind of helping those younger girls come through, but it takes time, like, you know, and hopefully they're enjoying it despite the results that they're getting, you know, and hopefully next year then they can bring those improvements on and try getting a few wins under their belt. Exactly. Railway have been the usual dominant, you know, enjoying themselves, scoring tries for fun. Leah Tarpey's been brilliant. Lindsay Peets, her rampaging self. Aoife McDermott's come back from her travels in Australia the last couple of years. Like, and these are all seasoned, apart from Leah Tarpey, like seasoned internationals who have been around the block a few times, and then they still have these youngsters like Tarpey coming through, scoring tries for fun. So it is a very dominant team, and for me, they themselves and UL Bows have been the best teams by far, and no one can come close to them. So it is tough for a young, inexperienced Tullow side to come up against that.
Exactly, no, 100%. And do you think that Railway will go unbeaten this season?
I can't answer that because they haven't played UL Bows yet. So I definitely think it'll take a lot to bring them down. But, you know, they have a lot of scoring prowess there and some really good players, but so do UL Bows. And, you know, it'll be a tasty affair when the two of them do finally meet.
Absolutely, 100%. And then over to the UL Bows, as we mentioned, 55 against Ballincollig with 8. So that was a good performance, of course, from UL Bows. Chisholm Aguero is definitely a mentionable player for UL Bows.
I think she's a bona fide superstar who still is so young and so much potential and so much to learn. But she's scoring tries for fun. I think before that game, she had something like 8 or 9 tries already in the season, which is ridiculous. But yeah, she's incredible speed, quickness, athleticism, an ability to break out of tackles, and she's not the only player that UL Bows have. They have a forward pack that can get some really good go forward ball, can score tries all by themselves. You know, they have a young 10 who's well able to boss that pack around the field like I was talking about, but also has a great kicking boot on her and ability to run herself if she wants. And look, UL Bows, really well coached team, look really, really dominant so far, fairly unstoppable. And in a derby game, you know, against Ballincollig, it wasn't as tight as obviously you would like, but it's to be expected. And, you know, Ballincollig, they'd be disappointed with that, but they probably almost expected an outcome, maybe not the scoreline, but they will have been buoyed by the fairly heavy defeat they gave Tullow the week before. And look, there's some really young, good players as well. They have an under-18 sevens international, Niamh Crotty, I think her name is. She scored a hat-trick against Tullow, and that kind of thing gives players the boost. As I said, they would have targeted that Tullow game. They would have said, okay, let's go into the Bows game and try, you know, keep them to a certain amount of score and work on our defence, and then they'll move on and kind of brush off that defeat and hope to get a result in the next game.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Not what they wanted, but respectable kind of here and there for them.
Absolutely, 100%. And just to see how the teams are getting on overall, we'll take a look at the scoreboard. So Railway Union are sitting in first with 23 points. UL Bows coming in second with 21. Wicklow and Galwegians are tied for third and fourth with 16 points. Blackrock is fifth with 14. Suttonians in sixth with 12. Old Belvedere with 10. Ballincollig in 8. Cooke coming in 9th with 5 points, and then we have Tullow in 10th. So that is the current scores on the leaderboard. And before we take a look at the matches that are coming up this weekend, we actually got to chat with Beibhinn Parsons a couple of weeks ago. She's part of that Rugby Sevens team who were at the Paris Olympic Games. Now, unfortunately, she did have a very unfortunate break to her leg, but as you'll see in the interview, she's definitely keeping her best side out and keeping positive. So we'll be right back after this interview with Beibhinn. To begin with the Tackle Your Feelings campaign, what you're here for and what you're representing, which is absolutely amazing. Why did you first get involved with it, I suppose? And is it something that's close to your heart?
The Tackle Your Feelings campaign, it's something that I think if I was in school, I would love to do it. It's just so good for, you know, at a young age to learn these tools for mental well-being, for resilience, for building relationships. And my experience of the Tackle Your Feelings has been brilliant. It brought me back to my old school with one of my best friends, Beibhinn, and it was really reminiscent, and it was just such a good campaign to be involved in because I think it has such great outcomes for people that take it on board. So yeah, it's really cool to be a part of.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, it seems like it's definitely something that's special to you. And even for schools to take it on board, like you're saying, how do you think we could better encourage them to buy into what the campaign is targeting?
Well, I think the campaign does so many things right. So they use rugby players that kids might already look up to, or it's just really interactive and accessible. So I think it's doing a lot of things right. It's just about, getting it out there and getting it known and showing teachers that this is just a really good campaign to get involved in. If I was in school, I think TY students would be the perfect candidate because they have that extra time to sort of spend and there's less pressure, so they can really immerse themselves in all the modules. So if I was a teacher of a TUI class, it's definitely something I would do.
I mean, you got into rugby so young as well. Do you think it's something, say, back when you were starting out, that would have helped you maybe with the mental pressures of things?
Absolutely. I think it would have benefited me, on and off the pitch. It's like swimming with the current. When your mental well-being is good and healthy and you're happy, it's like going to training every day is something you really love, and you get the most benefit out of it. And when things aren't great upstairs, it makes things a lot harder. So I think knowing that from a young age, you'd put more time into, your mental well-being, and making sure that you have things in place on good days and bad days to make sure that you feel as best as you can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, don't they say a happy athlete is a good athlete, or so yeah, it's so true. But even looking back on the summer now, huge congratulations.
Thank
The Olympics must have been absolutely amazing. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience and maybe an insight into it?
Yeah, the Olympics is just a magical experience, and we did so much work at home preparing for it, visualizing it, making lists, like packing lists and looking at the map and looking at all the schedules. But as soon as you walk into the village, it just all goes out the window because it's just phenomenal. Like, you can't put into words. There's no amount of visualization you can do to prepare yourself for it because it's just fantastic. The energy there of people like really wanting to represent their country and compete and win gold medals. Like, you can feel it, it's palpable, and it was just such an amazing thing to be a part of. And I'm so grateful that I was one of the very few people that got to go and experience it.
Did it change maybe? I know because you've represented Ireland so many times at an international level. Is there something just a little bit different about the Olympics?
Yeah, like there is, and you never take for granted wearing a green jersey if it's, in a back pitch somewhere, or if it's on in the Stade de France, you don't, because each one comes with its own nuance, and it's still special. But there's something about the Olympics where people really get on board and really, watch and tune in, and that as well, and it has the capability to inspire young people. So it is special, and I think you have to take that on board as well. You can't just deny that fact.
And I'm sure little Beibhinn would be absolutely ecstatic that she made it to the Olympics. Was it always a dream of yours?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely didn't think rugby would take me to the Olympics. I didn't know how I'd get there or what sport I'd be doing, but I just always saw it as the pinnacle of sport, and something that I wanted to be involved in.
Going back to the time when you did start, I remember hearing that you were on an under-10s. Well, it was supposed to be a mixed team, but you were the only girl with lots of boys. So what was that like? And have you seen a change, say, in how rugby teams started with having so many boys, and now there's the girls are getting their moment now?
Yeah, I think minis rugby has changed completely. At the time that I picked up rugby, that was my only option, was to play on a mixed team full of boys. But now I go down to Ballincollig and there's 60 minis girls playing, and they're all invested and they all follow the women's team. Just at the Australian game, they sent up two busloads, I think, from Ballincollig of many girls to go watch, and it's just really special. Like, the volunteers and the parents and the coaches for the women's side are just impeccable. Like, I've seen them in a few different clubs, and they really go above and beyond, and I think it's just exciting because those players are coming through now and you see them, and it's just going to grow the game so much in Ireland.
And I can imagine your career hasn't always been linear. I'm sure there's setbacks along the way. Is there any major challenges that you've maybe gone through?
Yeah, definitely. Even just this year, our team had faced a lot of adversity just with things off the pitch, and we all had to sort of come together as a team and really get through them. So this year wasn't, your magical journey towards the Olympics. There's lots of hurdles and bumps in the road. And then on the 15 side of things, qualifying for the World Cup this time was so special because we missed out on it last time. And I was there in Parma when we missed out on that qualification, and that was really tough. Because we definitely, felt like we were good enough to go, and we trained so hard for it. So we nearly had to grieve that. And that happened at, an early part of my career. So I think knowing that that, you know, not everything works out every time, has been a good lesson to learn, and it's sort of something that I won't forget going forward.
Absolutely. And thinking of the World Cup, then is that something that you think about in training, or is it like too daunting, too big to think in a day-to-day training regime?
Oh, I think you definitely sort of have an awareness of it, but it doesn't take up your whole focus because there's campaigns before it and there's games and there's training. So it definitely is like your guiding light of these are our pool games and these are who we're going to see, but you can't let it take over your whole focus because then you'll just miss what's right in front of your eyes in the next game. So it sort of has to be a next game mentality and be a bit more present than constantly thinking about the World Cup.
And say getting over an injury as well, have you really depended on the team to help you through that? Maybe keeping the contact with people and
Yeah, definitely. And my rehab is in the HPC, so I'm seeing the girls, you know, every day, and I live with a few of them. So I have a really good bubble around me, and that's really important. There's a good few of us in rehab at the moment, a lot of us are hoping to be back for the Six Nations or before then. So it's good that we have like a common goal and we can really drive each other on.
yeah, well, I hope you have a very speedy recovery, that's for sure. And
Thank
if you
you.
have any advice for younger athletes who are looking up to you, because there are so many and maybe that want to reach an elite level as well, what would that be?
I think the enjoyment piece is massive. Like going to training and really just enjoying it, and it doesn't have to be specialized at all, especially at a young age. Play as many sports as you want. Play, you know, I think the more the merrier, and don't try to hone in or focus until you get that bit older because you see it now, like players that play basketball, they might have a good offload, or players that play soccer might have a good like kick or whatever it may be. So I think they can all really work in tandem together.
Amazing. If you were playing any other sport, what do you think it would be?
I played a good bit of Gaelic football when I was younger. So I think I could play that. And then I'd love to give AFL a go, maybe, sometime in the future. So that could be fun as well.
Very good. That would be very fun. Do you think, say, the skills that you picked up playing football translated into your rugby then?
I think so. I think just any but hand-eye coordination, solo and kicking, I think all of those transfer.
Amazing. And when you're unwinding or, trying to relax after training, is there anything that you like to do in particular?
While it's still like dry out and not raining, I love going for walks. When I was injured, I had my leg up elevated, so I couldn't walk for, the guts of 2 weeks. And now I'm like, okay, I'm never taking this for granted, just going for a little stroll. So things like that. And then I live with some girls that I play with as well. So we do lots of things together, like sea swims or, just even cooking dinner together, just spending time together.
Yeah, and I suppose even living together, you probably pick up good habits from each other, and you can all, I suppose you're on the same mindset and things, bed early and things like that.
Yeah, it is so much easier when there's people on your schedule. It's just nice that, you wake up at 6 o'clock, but the other two girls are up as well. You don't feel like, oh, I'm the only one doing this. And yeah, and when they're playing so well, like you're able to champion them too and, be a shoulder to lean on if things aren't going well. So it's really good to have that little network.
Amazing. And would you have any pre-game rituals or any kind of maybe routines that you have before a match?
I don't really have any bar one, and it's listening to this song that I don't even like. Um, it's my sister showed me this song, and she said it reminded me of her. This is like the day before my first cap, so I listened to it on the drive into the stadium that day, and now without fail, I have to listen to it. And it's such a bad song, I don't like it. But I just listened to it in my AirPods. But there's one game that I lost my AirPods and I had to listen to it on the speaker of my phone. I was like so embarrassed that anyone might hear it because it's just a dreadful song. But yeah, that's my only superstition.
That's so funny. Superstitions are funny, aren't they? I think every athlete does have something that they need. And as a team, do you guys do anything in particular together, or maybe even at a club level? Is there maybe differences in?
Well, we always have our jersey presentation. I think that's probably universal with loads of teams, but it is really just a special moment to sort of connect, and usually if there's a first cap, it adds that extra layer of like excitement, and you really want to, you know, play well to make them enjoy their first cap. So I like that ritual of just, you know, being together the night before the game and everyone sort of celebrating getting their jersey.
Amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much, Beibhinn. It's great to chat to you, and the very best of luck with the rest of the season now. You're very welcome back to the Her Sport Energia AIL rugby show, brought to you by Energia. So that was our interview with Beibhinn, who was a pleasure to chat to. Of course, very unfortunate about her injury, especially ahead of the World Cup. Hannah, what would that be like for a player now who wants to prepare themselves as best as possible to be dealing with such an injury?
Yeah, look, injuries are tough, and particularly on the biggest stage for her. Like, she would have built up for the Olympics for so long, but thankfully, in a way, it was fortunate. She did get to play a good bit in the Olympics before the injury happened, and while she's had the injury fixed and all now, she's rehabbing away, she does at least have a goal in mind of reaching that World Cup to get back for, and she should be back in plenty of time, which is a very nice positive and kind of carrot for her, I suppose, to reach for. But yeah, injuries can be really tough mentally, you know, particularly when you're part of a team and the team continue to go on trips and train away and you feel like you can't contribute. So I think it's really important to have a focus outside of sport, whether sports is your full-time job or not. When you get injured, it can be mentally really, really tough, and so to have a distraction or something outside of sport that you can kind of turn to and focus on for a little bit, so that the highs and lows, you know, are kind of easy to navigate. But yeah, for her, she should be back in plenty of time for the World Cup, and it's a nice thing for her to focus on, to kind of get through and get back to her roar and best, so she can be scoring tries down the wing for us, because we'll need her if we want to be successful in that World Cup. Exactly. No, injuries, it goes without saying, they're very tough. Remember Aoife Wayford having a very difficult injury right after she getting her first cap for Ireland. Yeah, look, like it's part and parcel of the game, and some people are hit by injuries much worse than others. You know, I played a very long career, and I was lucky enough to only have one massive injury that really affected my career, my shoulder. And when you're out, as I said, like you're part of the team still, and you're kind of there, but you don't really feel involved. And I suppose it's up to you to put in the hard work and to get yourself back in contention for a jersey. But your teammates are there and rally around you for support and everything else. And like, luckily for me, you know, that was the one big one that kind of kept me out of a couple of tournaments, and I was able to be involved. But I'd always be very conscious of players who are injured to make sure they're fully involved, they're invited to things, they're, you know, we still ask their opinions of matches and analysis, because they're still a teammate, and, you know, you can be very, very, very vulnerable when you're injured. So, and nobody wants to see that. Like, so, yeah, it's just about kind of bringing everyone in together and helping them along the way. Exactly. Would you say you got more injured in GA or rugby? Definitely rugby. Not because it's a contact sport, just pure fluke injuries. I had a shoulder injury. I dislocated it back in the 2015 Six Nations, and then didn't really have many injuries until literally the last few months of playing rugby, where I broke my eye socket just from someone's knee banging off me in a tackle in a practice game, and then like 5 months later in a club game I broke the other eye socket just really randomly. They were kind of the worst injuries, so I had a couple of black eyes for a while, but GAA not so much really. So right, yeah, no, they don't sound too nice. All right, well, we'll take a look at the upcoming matches for this weekend. On the 16th of November, we've got Ballincollig versus Blackrock College at 5 in Tanner Park, Cooke versus Old Belvedere at 5 in Shaw's Bridge, Galwegians versus Railway Union at 5 in Crowley Park, Tullow versus Suttonians at 5 in Black Gates, Wicklow versus UL Bows at 5, and that's in Ashtown Lane. So definitely be sure to keep up with us on all the latest AIL rugby news. You can keep up with our social medias and right here on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed so that you can keep up on all of our episodes. Thank you very much for listening, Hannah. Thank you very much for being here, and we will see you next time.